Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is Kazu here with another Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak video. This is going to be a little bit of a different video. I'm going to be talking about why I'd like to apologize to all heavy bowgun players out there, and I do mean that in a very sincere way. Now, Deva, a YouTuber, a Monster Hunter speedrunner, had released a Valstrax speedrun using the heavy bowgun where he cleared it in 1 minute 23 seconds, which is honestly an astounding time. But I left a dismissive comment saying, oh, just usual gunner stuff. And he replied back saying it was, rather disrespectful, and he took the effort to put in a pretty lengthy reply, to which, I realized, why is there hate for gunners? Why do I dislike gunners? Why is there a prejudice against this between blademasters and gunner players? Is it just because they do outlandish damage? Do we think that it requires less skill to use these weapons over our weapons? Stuff like that. So just, over the weekend, I did make a HBG set, so I decided, hey, I'm going to try it out. I'm going to analyze heavy bowgun from a speedrunner perspective, or just from a more competitive perspective. But ultimately, in the end of the day, this is Monster Hunter, this is a co-op game. We play it for fun or to challenge ourselves, and regardless of what we do, we shouldn't judge each other or, have harsh, unnecessary, or unwarranted negative criticisms of each other's weapons and playstyles. So, at the end of the day, I was rather unfair, and I did want to apologize to him for making that harsh comment. But without further ado, we're going to analyze the speedrun, and we're going to go into detail on why the speedrun is so impressive, and how, even if you're using heavy bowgun, light bowgun, or bow, it still takes a serious amount of effort, time, and skill to pull off these speedruns that, it just shouldn't be dismissed or overlooked, regardless of who you are or what you use. So yeah, let's get straight into it. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with Deva or his Valstrax run, I'm going to leave a link in the description below. You can check that out. But pretty much his HBG run is the whole thing that started me going into this kind of debate internally with myself. I do want to use this video as sort of a reply back to him, but really just apologize because after, crunching the numbers and looking at the data as well as playing HBG myself, I realized how much more work it is than it seems to be. And I think probably that's the case for a lot of us players who haven't actually played gunners or tried doing speedruns as gunners ourselves. So, going over, I'm just going to show a short amount of footage from his speedrun. You can check out the actual speedrun yourself on his channel. But Valstrax, if you don't know, is a monster that has a pretty decent amount of health. So if we go on Kuranico, we can actually look at his health pool for the Quest Mysterious Glow MR6 star. In Area 6, which is the area that Deva fought him, it's going to be a 10% chance to spawn in, and he's going to have 50,290 HP. Give or take, it could probably increase or decrease depending on size. So that's a lot of HP, 50,290. Now, if we take that number, 50,290 divided by 83, because he took 1 minute 23 seconds to clear it, we get a DPS of 605 over the course of the entire hunt. So that's factoring when he's not actually in combat, but also factoring the additional damage it would take from things like his chest exploding and his dogs, his palamuts dealing damage as well. But a total DPS of 605 is still insane regardless of how you look at it. So that's kind of brings me to point one, which is, gunners deal a lot of damage. So the first point I'd like to bring up is that, because gunners deal such insane damage, a lot of us like to think that, oh, it's such an easy weapon to use. All I have to do is stand here and shoot at the monster from a distance when they're knocked down. But I'm using a very similar setup to Deva right now. I'm pulling about 118 quest DPS in this Valstrax hunt, whereas he was pulling 606. Well, that was in total, but still, I'm doing barely 20% of his damage using a very similar setup in terms of armor skills and weapon. So you can see there's a huge discrepancy based on skill. I'm obviously just a complete noob with this weapon. I pretty much hardly ever used it. I used it a little bit in Rise, but pretty much I haven't used it at all in Sunbreak until now. So I'm definitely not hitting my weak zones properly. As you can see here, Valstrax enraged, which means his elemental weakness has now gone to 0 for the hit zones, and so I'm dealing pretty much no damage, and my DPS is drastically shooting down. One of the most impressive things on Dev's run is that he's dealing a ton of damage because he is consistently keeping the monster knocked down so that it cannot enrage, and because it cannot enrage, it cannot reset its elemental hit zones to 0. And so he's able to get the full elemental damage on the hunt throughout the entirety of the fight, which I am not able to do here. When it comes to the gunners, their damage curve is going to be something like this at the start, where all you have to do is learn the very basics of gunning. You have to learn how to aim at the weak spots, hit those weak spots pretty consistently, and then either iframe, dodge, or dash, or hyper armor your way through monster attacks so that you can stay alive throughout the hunt. And once you have the hang of that, your damage output is going to be pretty high and pretty consistent over the course of the hunt. At optimum levels of play, however, that curve is going to get very steep. The difference between a decent gunner and a good gunner is going to be, tens, maybe even hundreds of damage worth of DPS throughout a hunt. At least as you've seen in my previous case, though I'm not a really good example of that. Now, when it comes to the Blademasters, that curve is going to be inversed. So it is going to take a lot longer for you to get used to the weapons and understand their combos, their switch skills, all of the synergies that tie into that. And so I would say that it's very, very, very easy to play terrible with a Blademaster weapon, more so than it is for gunning, although it could definitely happen for both types of weapons. And so once you do get to the optimum levels of play, that's going to get a little bit steeper, and player skill is going to allow you to have much, much higher DPS, though it will never be as high as the gunners. And that's kind of where we get salty as Blademasters, is that, we're just never going to be able to close this gap. No matter how good you are, no matter how much damage you can output, there's just simply this gap you cannot surpass. And Deva made a good point that it's like, if I played optimally and I had a 3-minute time, there's almost no way that I get a time better than that, or a 2-minute time, or a 1-minute time. So that's kind of where the salt comes from, at least on my half on gunners versus Blademasters. As you can see here, there's always going to kind of be this skill gap where, if you're playing as a gunner, you can almost always deal more damage than a Blademaster, but it does depend on skill. And the Blademasters can surpass the gunners if they're playing very well as well, So, I mean, take this with a pinch of salt. Don't just blanketly look at this and be like, yeah, this is some sort of fact. This is just my opinion and conjecture, covering over the topic of DPS versus skill when it comes to both of these types of weapons, and how I perceive it, and how probably a lot of other players perceive it as well. So no doubt in my mind that it does take a lot of skill to reach these optimum numbers and these high damage outputs that you're seeing on speedrunners, so don't underestimate that. So for my second point, I would like to identify that gunners actually do need a lot of perseverance, especially when it comes to speedruns. So what do I mean by that? Well, when you're speedrunning, luck, time, and effort are 3 major factors. Of course, player skill is also a factor, but we just covered that. But when it comes to luck, you have to rely on the monster AI, you have to rely on certain spawns, certain conditional modifiers, before you can actually do your speedrun, or before you can really succeed with a speedrun. So as an example here, I'm hunting Valstrax with Longsword and trying to speedrun it with the Sacred Sheath combo playstyle. I really need to rely on Valstrax's first couple moves being very easy to dodge or manipulate with and counter, so that I can prepare the Sacred Sheath combo for when he charges up his chest. Sometimes he'll either charge up his chest immediately, or he'll do a long range attack and then get away from me and then charge up his chest so I can't hit him. But other than that, it doesn't really matter what else happens on in the hunt. As long as I can pull that off, then I can start breaking his chest and knocking him down repeatedly. When it comes to heavy bowgun, however, at least in Deva's case, the strategy that he utilizes specifically, or at least I believe it specifically requires Valstrax spawning in area 6 with a water vent. Now, the water vent is an environmental effect, the blue icon here, where you blow it up with a barrel bomb and then it shoots out a jet of water, which will knock down Valstrax and inflict the water blight. That's going to be huge for your damage, as well as give you an opportunity to apply the rest of the stickies to get the stun for a continued KO. And so this is a really important part to Deva's strategy, or at least I think it is, again, and it only has a 10% chance of happening. Valstrax will only spawn in Area 6 at a 10% chance, and it seemed way lower for me because I hunted him for maybe 2 or 3 hours using heavy bowgun, and he only spawned there once. the entire time in Area 6, and it was without a water vent. So I can't even imagine how long it took just to even attempt the, first couple runs trying to kill Valstrax, because you have to rely on this very specific conditional that's very rare. So I give him huge props for that. I just based on that alone, I will never try to speedrun this with heavy bowgun. So basically, I was trying to do the Valstrax heavy bowgun run myself, and I realized I have to do roly-poly lanterns. I have to actually reset the quest for Mysterious Glow for Valstrax to get him to spawn at lava caverns on the right map, right? And then I would have to keep doing it over and over again until he spawns at Area 6 with the water vent, which really did not seem like it was going to happen. So I was just fighting him in like area like 10 or whatever with the magma vent, the lava area with the magma vent. And that obviously wasn't working out too well, which is where I realized that it does take a considerable amount of time, effort, and skill to use heavy bowgun. I mean, it seems like a pretty obvious conclusion to make, but it's really not until you do it yourself, because, I mean, speedrunners are just so good that they make this look like a cakewalk, Like, I just have to sit here and hold the trigger and then the monster's dead. But in reality, there are a lot of things that you have to have knowledge of and prepare for. One example is item preparation. You have to bring the exact amount of materials or goods you're going to use. You just need one barrel bomb and one small barrel bomb that you're going to throw with the barrel bomb to proc the vent. Bring demon powder, bring a might pill, stuff like that. For the ammo types, bring the exact ammo types that you need for the hunt, and nothing more, nothing less, so that you can efficiently switch between ammo types. You just need your stickies and your piercing fire and the wyvern to crack the chest open. Stuff like that is something that a player might not normally think about, but that's what makes a speedrunner. That's what makes optimum level of play optimum. And when it comes to other things like, say for example, stun damage thresholds, you're going to have to know exactly how many stickies it takes to knock out the monster, so that you don't get an early knockout. You get the knockout when you're trying to chain it from a knockdown. Stuff like that is very nuanced, but does take time, effort, and skill to do. So overall, those are my thoughts on heavy bowguns, or on gunners, compared to blademasters. I'm not really talking too much about blademasters, probably because if you're watching this, you already know well enough how blademasters work. And so I hope you find the video insightful or meaningful in any way. Again, I do apologize to Deva for my critique, or my just kind of random comment that was dismissing his speedrun, when really it was very impressive. Again, great job on 123 time. I believe Akko, the Japanese player that he was using the strategy for, had like a 124 time, so it was only a 1 second improvement. But I mean, regardless, it is just so hard to do. And I have so much more respect for you guys after actually using a heavy bowgun myself, trying to do a speedrun with it, and then analyzing the gameplay of an actual speedrunner, to really gain an understanding of what they're actually doing, rather than just, face value, gun, shoot, die, that kind of thing. After actually taking a deeper look at it, it's pretty easy to see that, yes, it is the same as Blademaster, the same as any other weapon in Monster Hunter Rise. If you're going to play Monster Hunter and you're going to play it seriously, you're going to have to put in time. You're going to have a very stubborn personality, because you're going to need to persevere through countless runs of just bad RNG, and just sometimes you make mistakes, And I mean, I'm not perfect myself. I make tons of mistakes. My speedruns are just filled with flaws. But I have a lot of fun doing it. I have a lot of fun challenging myself, and I have a lot of fun seeing other players challenge themselves. So I hope this video can spread actually some positivity. Maybe it might get heated in the comments. I hope not, but I'm hoping to spread some positivity between the Blademasters and Gunners. Let's all ally together, and really we're just playing Monster Hunter at the end of the day to have fun. So yeah, that's going to be it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Like, subscribe, comment, or don't. It's up to you. If you found this information helpful, that's great. And I am going to be making more Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak videos in the future. But if not, I completely understand. And so have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.